Hello Fiat friends. Today I'm installing a V4 intake on my own 2012 Abarth. This isn't really intended to be a complete install video. I just got back from the Fiat Freakout and some people had some questions about the way the V4 sits in my car versus some other people, and the difference is really in how we install it. So I'm going to go over a few of those little tips. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about, or the first thing in technical terms, is the crankcase breather line that's going to run around and go into the Apollo air filter. One difference here in my install versus maybe some of the others I've seen is that I keep this expanded piece here prior to the transition pretty short. It's because small hoses make tighter bend radiuses than bigger hoses, generally speaking. So this enables me to go around the outboard side between the battery and the motor. That's going to help us fit everything in a little bit later. Then after that, the hose just snakes around through the rat's nest of associated plumbing, and over here I've got the other end of that hose that's going to hook into the back of the Apollo filter. Now we're going to put the Apollo filter in. This is one of the things a lot of people have trouble with, but it's really pretty easy. The Apollo filter just snakes right through here. You just lift up on the cowling and it fits right in. Now the positioning should be something like this. The big part of the Apollo should be just to the driver's side of the line leading to the ejector tee, assuming you have one. So hopefully you folks at home can see that. The filter should go right about there. That's about it for filter placement. Okay, now we're going to hook the line from the crankcase breather onto the back of the Apollo filter. It just shoves onto right there. That's the very next thing to do. I need two hands to put it on, so I'll have to shut the camera off. Okay, now we're getting ready to put on the turbo side of the Apollo filter. One thing I like to do is take a little bit of, this is just dish soap and water, a mild solution. I just keep a spray bottle handy, but you could just have a tiny bowl with some dish soap and water and spray it into the connection areas and just kind of move it around there. This acts as a lubricant that'll help it really slip on, but it evaporates, probably before you even get the car started. So this will make installation go a little bit more easily. Okay, we've got the turbo side of the intake on. It slips right on here. It's snug. In fact, it'll probably seal fine without clamps, but of course we use clamps anyhow. You don't need to worry about cutting a little notch for that little dowel right there, that locating dowel. That's just a speed on the assembly line at the factory thing. It's not at all important for the V4. In fact, it might actually be detrimental if you were to cut that notch out. Then it attaches to the filter at the other end, and I typically leave the clamps up like this and leave them a little bit loose at this point until it's all in, because you may need to make some small adjustments. The reference line is hooked up here, and the evap purge line is now on the intake. Clicks on and secures nicely. Okay, it's pretty much all installed now. Turbo up to the air filter. The breather line, crankcase breather, is attached on the back. Then it goes to the intake tube. I'm sure some forum person will point out that we're missing our fresh air duct to connect the factory high pressure source of air to our intake. The reason is because at the Fiat Freakout we installed some intakes, and one in particular was on a car with a competitor's intake, and it was missing that fresh air duct, and so I sacrificed it off of my own personal car to make our customer's installation complete. Hi Casey, if you're out there. And we're waiting on the duct from our dealer. Anyhow, back to the installation. You can see that our breather line comes out in this direction towards the battery to the side of the car. And if everything is just right, the main fresh air supply to the filter will just barely be resting on the air oil separator housing. If it's like that, if you have that hose properly routed and it's resting on there, your hood clearance is going to be good. If it's not resting on there, it's because some of the rat's nests of hoses underneath are probably propping it up. As you see it, you can see the way the pipes run to and from the filter are more or less parallel with the ground. If they're at some funny angle, it's probably has to do with the way you installed it. You can adjust that angle by loosening the clamps and twisting things and moving things around, but generally it doesn't take it too much to get it to sit like this, and that's how I like it. Now it will just barely touch the hood with the insulation. I mean just barely. See if you can see, this intake has been on this car for well, for a long time since we've had V4s, and it doesn't wear through or anything. It certainly is never going to wear through the silicone. There's no harm in it touching a little bit. In fact, it's actually good because it helps hold it in place, and a lot of cold air rushes over that hood, so that's, if anything, kind of a cool spot for the intake to be touching. The intake requires no additional brackets. It's entirely self-sustaining and just rests in certain places, and consequently it does touch in that one spot, but it's just not a problem. Also, you'll know you got it right over here if it's close but does not touch the oil dipstick, and it should be a reasonable distance from the coolant bottle. And that's about it. So just backing up, here's the overview shot again. Again, we're missing the fresh air duct, but that doesn't, all that would do is move this over just a hair. That particular engine cover is our prototype. It's not available. We make a version that's very, very similar that has a scorpion thing and R3T rally symbol that you can get from Chris at Euro Compulsion. This was the prototype. In fact, really sharp observers, really sharp, will notice that it rubs a little bit right there at the front. The production one certainly doesn't do that. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.